Hello everyone and welcome to Lowrentrick Scale Modelling, and this is my build of the absolutely epic Star Trek 1 in 600 scale USS Enterprise from Revell. This also includes the LED lighting kit which I got off eBay from Gary Hughes, and please do check him out. All the links to everything that I use in this build will be in the description below. This kit was bought for me for Christmas from my partner Kim. Um, I said it was a Christmas present, and she said it was a good Christmas present. And also, it's taken me until, what is it now, the 31st of July. I'm recording this final bit. So it's taken me 7 months to get around to building it. The entire build, including the video, the recording, the editing, took around 100 hours to complete. I believe there are better modelers out there that do it in half the time. But including all the little mistakes I made and the learning I've made along the way, it has been the best model I've built so far. Certainly the best model I've done for YouTube, and certainly something I want to do again to see if I can make a better job of it. It's been that good. The lighting kit comes with everything you'll need, as you would expect, but you will have to make up your own control boards, and everything will need soldering together. Now, I've not soldered for maybe 15 years. As you will see throughout the video, my soldering leaves something to be desired, but I felt I was getting better at it and remembering the muscle memory as I got towards the end. So you will need some extra kit that is outside the usual modeler's tools. So you will need soldering iron, you'll need some solder, you'll need a glue gun, and one or two other things like a really decent drill too. Once you've bought the lighting kit from Gary Hughes, he will send you a 22-page instruction PDF, which you will use alongside the instructions from the kit itself. And actually working out this step by step between the two instructions can be a little bit difficult, but he's done his best, and it's a really good detailed set of instructions. The actual kit itself from Revell is a really premium feel to it. It's in great condition, as you would expect for this type of money. The instructions are the later versions, so they're extremely clear and really well laid out. I think without the lighting kit and the shenanigans that you have to do to build this, I think this would be maybe a 6 to 8 hour build outside of installing the lighting kit. So I'm pleased it's a good base kit to start with. There's lots of preparation work to do on the model before you actually build it. So I've chaptered the video out and included some of the things that you must do. So we'll get on with chapter 2 now, which is the blacking out to try and stop the LEDs bleeding through the plastic. For blacking out, I'm just going inside the saucer and any of the body that has LEDs installed in it, and I'm just using Vallejo Model Air Black acrylic to make sure that the inside has a layer. There is also going to be a top coat on the outside, which will help stop with the bleed of any lighting too. The main body, the saucer and the nacelles and the struts for the nacelles will all have a blackout coating. The first part of the LED preparation is to make up the control boards. The two control boards themselves have a limited space within the model to go, so you've got to make sure that they are quite neat and any of your ends at the back are trimmed off. When I watch it back in time lapse like this, I can see just how shoddy my soldering is. Something I've got to get a bit of practice at, because I do intend to do more of these lit models because of the simple level of enjoyment that went into them and the final result. Also, when choosing your equipment, I've got a gas soldering iron here, which they're amazing things. I choose them over everything else, but for this type of work, when you're working close to some quite delicate plastics, there is quite an exhaust jet of heat that comes from a gas soldering iron. So I think for any builds in the future, I would get my hands on a quite powerful electric rather than using the gas. Later on in the build, you'll see one or two little bits of damage that I make on internal pieces, not on external pieces, which are caused by getting that exhaust jet too close to some quite delicate pieces. So that's a lesson I've learned through this build. There are a few sections in the model that you'll have to drill out for things like LEDs, and there are some cutouts to do so you can actually see the LEDs. For example, this is the impulse engine cover. So my method is to score out and then do a pilot hole with the drill, and then basically finish with a lot of hard work with the scalpel. I just find that if I put multiple holes in, it doesn't tend to go as well, and the control that I get over the scalpel is much better. I'm using some netting here, which is a black net, similar to what you get in sort of the Challenger kits for the stowage bins. But what I've actually used is a cut up pencil case, which my partner kindly donated. There are some sections within the pylons too that you'll have to cut out, so the channels where the wiring can actually run doesn't compromise with the fit. So these are the two struts that hold up the nacelles. These are the Bussards, so these will have 9 LEDs installed in them. So detailed in the instructions are some little cuts that you have to make, and then you will have a template. The templates are slightly offset, so you'll have to mark the centers first, because if you stick them down then they will be off center. But that's all explained very well in the instructions that come with the lighting kit. Do use a good quality drill, because a pin vise just won't do the job for the amount of drilling you've got to do here. You've got to do some rather large holes. Installing the LEDs in the Bussard, you just got to make sure that you get the anode and cathode the right way around. So make sure that you know which way around they are, and they all do face the right way, as you will be making a ring circuit with the negative leg. I'm using Tamiya extra thin to secure them. It doesn't attack the LEDs themselves, but it does make the styrene stick to them and keep them secure if you let them dry for long enough. Cutting out the apertures on the nacelles here using the same method. Now this took about 2.5 hours to complete. The instructions recommend using some milk carton. There are blue LEDs going into the nacelles, so I'm going to use the plastic netting again, which will take a coating of paint, but I just think for me, for what I need from this model, I think it'll give a much better effect. This was a lot of work to get this correct. I know it could have been easier by drilling it out, but again, it's the level of control that I get from the scalpel that I think made me do it this way. There were blisters on my fingers after finishing this, and there goes Kim's pencil case getting chopped up and welded in with some super glue. As you can see, the effect is really quite good. Similar again, as I've said, to the netting on the stowage bins on things like the Challenger. When installing the windows, you've got to make sure that they are glued in extremely well, because you'll be giving these a lot of hammer from the outside. Once the model is complete, you'll be masking, and then you'll be scraping a bit of paint. So you want to make sure they are glued in really, really well. Don't worry about any clouding. It's not like a canopy on a plane. where you've got to see through the windows. A lot of them aren't see-through anyway, so you can afford to really get them glued in there nice and strong, because you will be applying quite a bit of pressure to them later on. We'll be masking up with some liquid mask, and then for the final coat we won't be masking at all. We'll just be removing the final coat with a cocktail stick, which is really quite fine and easy to do. Two of the windows in this top section here will be painted on the back with some Vallejo Model Air red, just to give them a red appearance when the white shines through them. At this stage I'm painting all the external parts, and I'm using Vallejo Model Air metallic set. So that's the Vallejo steel, and for the deflector dish at the front I'm using the Vallejo copper. Now this set, I've put a link in the description to get your own from Amazon. Of all the metallic paints I've used, this one is absolutely stunning. The coverage is amazing. It generally only needs the one thin coat. It's extremely hard wearing once dry, and fills really well. It's a cracking set of metallics. I tend to use Vallejo for almost everything because they are, for me, just the best paints out there. Later on we'll be looking at a paint that's not on the market yet from Galeri. It's their Kaleido ColorWorks range, which I've been sent over to review. So I'll be doing a review video on them for their launch week late on the first week of August, and when that's live I'll stick that link in the description too. The second stage of the LED prep involves putting all the windows into the main body and the neck, which are going to be lit by some LED strips facing up and down in the main body itself. Again, these really do need gluing in tight, as you're going to be pressing them hard from the outside. I can't imagine the amount of faff it would take to have to open it up and make sure these are glued back in from the outside. It would be a real nose. The two support struts will be what support the LED strips, and obviously hold the body together really well. The fit on one or two of these lighting strips, window strips, was a little bit tight, and if you push them too hard they do mark the body on the outside, which I found to my cost. So just be a little bit careful when pressing them down. The Bussard lighting LEDs are by far the fiddliest part of the construction, and to be fair, the instructions do warn that this is the fiddly bit. Now, first of all, you've got to bend all the negative legs around and solder them together to make a circuit that travels all the way around the outside of the Bussard lighting. Once you've got all those soldered off, you can trim off the ends of the negative legs. The positive legs need pairing up, and they're colour coded. To make sure that the lights travel in the correct directions, they have to be paired in a certain manner. So top and bottom, for example, will be paired green with a bridge, and that'll become, the top one will become LED 1. Now this is extremely fiddly, and the mistake I made here was cutting down the positive legs so I can get at them and solder in the bridges. But later on in the build, you're going to have to attach, obviously, the feed lines to these positive legs, which made it even more fiddly because I'd trimmed the legs down. If I'd left them a little bit longer, I'd have had more to play with and more room. But this was by far a fiddly job, As you can see, I'm struggling with it a little bit to get them to go in, and then I wasn't sure that the connections that I'd made were right. You can test the LEDs using a button cell, just to make sure you don't blow them. Once you've got them in, you can link them across with just a coin battery, just to see that you've got the connections correct. Once they're all wired up, you've got to move on to the LED strips for the main body, and you can see when I start them that I make the first of many little mistakes. So the LED strips themselves are adhesive on the back. You need to just tin up the connections, and as you see here, I get the exhaust too close to the back of the LED strip and melt it slightly. Luckily it didn't damage it. It does make the adhesive incredibly difficult to mess about with. It does come supplied with that plastic strip to mount up on, but it does make those adhesive strips really difficult to get off. I would also suggest if I built this again, once I'd put the LED strips on using the built-in adhesive, I would always give them a little drop of super glue as well, because later on in the build I found that one of them had dropped off and I had to split the nacelle to get in there and just make sure it's glued in place. So if you're building this, don't make the same mistake I do. So there's not a lot of space there for that board to go. So the wires that come out to the top that travel up the pylons to the Bussards, you may need to bend them down slightly just so that they fit. And the gluing together of the main body, I just took my time with it and made sure that it was all firm. The nacelle lighting was quite easy. Again, these strips here, I'm using the proprietary adhesive on the backing that came with them. At this point here, I would recommend that you go around those LED strips with some super glue or a glue of your choice, just to make sure that they hold, so you don't have to do what I did and have to split them. So here you've got to join the one half of the supports by taping together the nacelles and then opening them up again so you can do the wiring. It's a little bit fiddly to get them glued onto only one half, but you've then got to be extremely careful when playing about with the nacelles and the struts, because the joint isn't that strong, and it's very easy to break them off. So I've used some very strong super glue to back up that joint. When running the cables, the instructions do say to use blobs of hot glue, but I find it a little bit messy, so I kind of spot weld them in with some little dabs of super glue. I've just found it a much neater way of doing it, and I'm a bit messy with the hot gun, so for this sort of work I end up with strands of melted glue all over the place. I just find this a much more neater way of doing it. Wiring up the feed lines to the Bussards here, and this is the part I was talking about earlier where I should have left those positive legs a little bit longer, so I'm having to fiddle around and try not to destroy the previous soldering with the new soldering, but once they are wired in, they just slot in quite nicely, and then I'm going to have to construct and glue together the nacelles proper with the other side of the strut supports. That noise you heard in the background was a passing typhoon, and I decided to leave it in there because living in Lincolnshire, typhoons are awesome. So that was the sound of a passing typhoon, just added to that bit of added value for the video. Gluing these bits together, make sure you get it nice and tight, and do clamp it up because they're extremely flimsy without the support on. And the body of this model does get a lot of hammer when installing the LEDs, and it's probably the reason that I didn't want to paint it first before assembly, because it would have been completely ruined by now. For the saucer section, we're going to make two rings of LED strips, which will all need tinning up first. So there's an outer ring and an inner ring. You've got to be very careful to make sure that you get these negatives and positives obviously in the right way around, but it's very easy when you've got so many bits knocking about to get one of the strips the wrong way around. I actually did that, but it was quite easy to quickly fix by just crossing the wires over once I'd got it installed. So these strips, again, they are self-adhesive, but you will need to back it up with a little bit of super glue once they are popped in, because the last thing you want is one of them breaking free and floating around inside the saucer section. Once you've got the ring circuit complete, just make note of where they actually go and stick to it quite religiously, because the second board is going to go in here as well. The board will go in close to the neck side. That controls all the saucer LEDs. That the up through the neck come the wiring loom for the top and the connection back down to the other boards and the Bussards. So that board there will go right next to the neck. So make sure it's nice and flat and sits in nicely. That is a job for the hot glue. When you get the board to install, you're going to have to wire backwards and forwards, and each side of this saucer also has some flashing LEDs top and bottom. One of the things I found with the red and green on the top and the white on the bottom LEDs is that I didn't leave enough space, so when it came to putting the saucer together, they actually butt up against each other. So make sure that when you put the side LEDs, the legs are bent nice and flat down to the saucer, so there's plenty of room for the top section to go in. All the loose wiring there is spot welded in with some super glue too. This is also without testing whether I've got the light in right. And on the top section, it's just the two LEDs, the red and the green, on the port and the starboard, leaving enough cable in to wire back to the board. Once you've got the top section of the saucer wired to the bottom, uh, in that big jumbled mess there, just make sure that nothing can contact each other, and any positives and negatives that are close are well insulated. Now here I have the struggle of finding out that the LEDs breach against each other, so I do mess around with it for a little while and get those LED legs and all the wiring bent out and put into the right places so I can actually put the saucer together. It was a little bit of a struggle, so I had to take it off the table, get a bit of force on it, get it on my knee, and be extremely careful that I didn't snap anything off. So you don't have to make those mistakes. I am now bending the legs of the LEDs out of the way and pushing the saucer together, making sure that none of the negatives and positives do make contact with each other, and then forcing those two halves together. Once I do have them together, it will be gently tacked in sections and then clamped, and then glued again and then clamped, just to make sure that it all sits together nice and tight. So each section I will glue in sort of 4 dimensions across the top, and then hold and glue, and then move them round an inch and do a little bit. So I tack it all the way around. But you will want to follow up all the way around with something like Revell contactor, which will sink into any gaps, and then when we put the top coat on, it will make sure that we don't get any LED bleed. It's now time to mask up all of these windows before the first layer of paint goes on. So I'm using Ultra Liquid Mask from MIG, Ammo MIG. It's really good stuff. I use it quite a lot now. I resisted using liquid mask for a long time, but now I couldn't live without it. It's pretty good to use on these little jobs and for canopies. And if you make a mistake, just rub it off with your thumb and do it again. The reason I'm masking up is because I'm about to use a paint that's quite new to the market. It's the Kaleido ColorWorks paint from WWII. It's being launched, I think, on the 8th of August, so I will link in the description my review video of that closer to the time, and it will include the introductory offers and codes as usual. But when I do apply that coat of paint over the top, after it's dried, I will take the mask off before the next layer of paint goes on. Because the paint is so good, it's primarily being used as a primer in this case, but also because it's so good at blacking out. I don't want any bleed coming through the plastic from the LEDs, and this paint will be a good choice to do that. But after that, I will take out all the masking because the masking may take off some of the paint with it. So in that case, the next layer, the top coat, will be Vallejo light grey, but it will be a very thin coat just to bring that colour up to a lighter grey. And for that, I won't bother masking. And what I will do then is I'll clean each window off with a cocktail stick, and it will come up nice and easy. There's no need to be masking again and risk pulling off more paint. I'm going to mix some armour grey and some armour white together here with some thinner and a little bit of distilled water because I don't want the base coat to be too dark, although I do want the model to be light grey rather than on the edge of the lighter, very light white grey. I would prefer mine to be sort of a light grey colour. So I'm going to mix the two paints together to give myself plenty to play with. The finish on this paint is a semi-gloss, and it's extremely hard wearing finish, and also its light blocking properties are really good, which is very specific to this use case here. I've already tested it out on a Spitfire that I have done, and when I shine a very powerful torch through it, it does block the light coming through. So for this case, to give it a nice hard wearing coating and to block the light, this paint is a really good choice. I will of course stick a link in the description below once this paint is launched on or around the 8th of August, and I'll also stick a link in the description to my review video of this paint because I've used it on a few models now, so you'll be able to see in detail what the paint can and can't do. It's a big thing to launch into a very crowded paint market with some established big players like your Tamiya's and your Vallejos and your MIG ammo. So they've really thought about this. So please do check out that video and see if it's something that may enter the market and might be a bit of a game changer. It is very good paint. It has got its uses, but it has also got its limitations. So please do check that video out once I release it next week. As you can see, the paint coverage is actually really good. I'd forgotten to mask up a couple of the LEDs there, so I had to quickly stop and make sure I get them masked up. If it was just the normal acrylic Vallejo, I wouldn't have bothered. I'd have just scraped back, but this paint's pretty tough once it's down. so I made sure that that extra was masked up. As you can see from the time lapse, it goes on quite shiny and then just backs off a little bit, so it's not a true gloss, more of a semi-gloss, but it is a very hard wearing surface, and it will be a nice key for the final colour over the top, the Vallejo light grey. This took quite a long time to actually paint up because of the nature of the shape. I found myself having to wait for coats to dry, then flick it round and do a little bit. This shape has got maybe 7 or 8 different angles at which you need to attack with the airbrush to get a nice even coverage. It was definitely worth it in the end, but this one coat of paint maybe took an hour and a half with drying time and with shifting about and finding different angles. Picking out the latex masking with a cocktail stick and tweezers, and it has taken off a little bit of the edges of the paint that I've put on as a top layer as suspected, and that's the whole reason I'm not going to mask up for the final layer of paint, because I don't want it to do that, and I will just clean each window with the end of the cocktail stick. It might seem laborious, but it's the best way to get a good quality finish on these windows, I think. Going over the top now with Vallejo light grey, mixed 50-50. So it's 50% paint, 25% airbrush flow improver from Vallejo, and 25% distilled water, just to give it a little bit of a lighter finish. I've chosen the grey, as I said earlier, because that's the way I like it. I know it should be probably be a lot lighter, but I wanted it to be a nice light grey. I'm never sure what the actual colour of the Enterprise is, so if anybody's got any pointers, just give me a drop some hints in the comments for anybody else as well. Share your knowledge. It's what this is all about. Once the paint is touch dry, I'm just going around each window now with the end of a cocktail stick. I've got some IPA in a little glass there, just in case some need a little bit more of a thorough clean. But it's coming off easily enough, and it was a good decision not to have to remask everything and risk pulling off that top layer of paint. This method's really good. I wouldn't recommend it obviously on a canopy, because a canopy obviously you want to be able to see in and out of it, but these are just apertures for light and not actual windows, so it's a really good method for just doing those. I've got to remember to do all of the LEDs also, but it's coming off easily enough as I suspected it would, and it's leaving a good square finish. Here I'm going to add some silver paneling. I'm just using the brush for this, and then I'm going to add all the exterior fittings. A good note here is to make sure that all the exterior fittings are glued and dry before you continue, because I didn't, and a few of them got knocked about quite a bit. So there's a lesson learned there. Make sure your parts are dry before you further manipulate the model. But now I'm happy that the outer coat is on and it's extremely robust. But once I've got all the exterior fittings glued, we're going to move on to a bit of varnishing for protection. You will need to be extremely careful if we are masking on top of this acrylic layer on top of the Kaleido paint layer, because the masking paint will pull that paint straight off if you're not careful with it before the varnish layer has gone over the top. And I did find that out before I started filming. I had to shift a piece of the masking tape, and it did take off a chunk of paint with it. So it's not quite ready for a bit of rough handling until that final coating of varnish has gone on. Before the decals go on, I'm going to go over with a couple of very thin coats of Vallejo Satin Polyurethane Varnish. The Satin Polyurethane is a good choice because it's a kind of, we all know what a satin finish is, but I don't want it to be too glossy, but I don't want it to be too matte. And also the satin polyurethane is a really hard wearing good finish, and it also gives a nice base for the decals to attach to. One of the beauties of doing it in a time lapse is you can actually see the layers curing as the time progresses. So this is a good choice for this one. It's one of the ones I use more. Probably use satin polyurethane more than I use gloss and more than I use matte. It's a nice in between. The decals that come along with the kit are extremely good quality and they're pretty robust. So they allow me to move them about and get it just right, because lining up a curved decal on a curved bevel surface is is quite a task. So they are cracking quality, and they do let me be quite rough with them because I'm always a bit sausage fingered when it comes to decals. But these ones are really quite smart. I should have looked at the decal sheet a little bit more carefully before I'd started, because there were some parts that I'd set off by painting silver when in fact there's already a decal to cover them over. Like on the struts, we've got the four bronze patches to go each side. I'd intended to paint them up, so that's where we go. We're also on the base, where the base attaches to the body. There is a line of decals that go under there too, and one or two of the decals have now been replaced by LEDs. All in all, though, the decal kit is amazing. It really sets the model off. At this point here, I'm seeing it all come together, and it's starting to look a lot like an Enterprise. I better add at this bit as well that the decal set actually comes with some further versions. You've also got the U.S.S Constellation and the U.S.S Potemkin decals too. But having never built anything like this before, why would I build anything other than the Enterprise? Now it's time to attach the stand and wire it in for the main power input jack. Now, as you can see, my stand is a little bit blingy. There was a pretty big accident during the build where I clumsily knocked over some paint and some super glue all over the stand, which kind of ruined the surface. So I raided the partner's craft room and I used some copper, gold and black glitter and piled that on there to rescue that base. And I kind of like it. I know a lot of people won't, and I'll probably catch some hate. But probably nobody's watching at this point either because we are like 40 odd minutes in. I'm not sure that anybody watches any of the long videos right to the end. If you are still watching or you do watch to the end, please drop me a comment as a bit of encouragement to let me know that actually somebody made it this far. I'd really appreciate it. Also, let me know what you think of my glitzy, blingy stand rescue. All comments welcome. Love it, hate it, indifferent. I'd just like to know. Once I've got the main power wires threaded through the base and out through the hole, we're going to attach the power jack. So what doesn't come with the kit and what you will need is a 12 volt 2 amp power supply transformer. Just so you've got loads of them knocking around your house. Go and have a search around for something that's 12 volt 2 amp. I just happen to have one from an old airbrush, which will do the job. But do it would be so bad to get to this point of the build, then put out something on that's too powerful, or find that your lights don't work. So it's a pretty standard fitting, and they are available all over eBay and Amazon if you do need one with multi-fit adapters too. So it's quite easy to get hold of. I was just lucky that I had one. I'm being extremely careful to fit the stand here with some very strong super glue. I use Power Bond. You can only get it from certain people. I think it may breach a few rules and regulations. I'm not sure, but it's extremely good stuff. And once it's stuck, it remains stuck. Taking a lot of care here now when I get this soldered up to one, not melt the model with my gas soldering iron, and two, to double and triple check the polarity before I get this jack socket soldered in and then super glued into the base. Again, not the end of the world. You can always reverse the polarity of the feed, but it's something that you don't want to do. Make sure you do use the shrink tubes as well. Some does come with the kit, but I found that I needed a bit more, so I've got some in my toolbox, luckily enough. And there we have the finished model, the U.S.S. Enterprise, the Revell 1600 scale kit. Absolute pleasure and a labour of love to get to this point. The model itself, a pleasure to build. The lighting kit, absolutely fantastic. Even if you don't have a lot of knowledge of the soldering, it's not a difficult thing to do. And the final effect, I think you'll agree, is absolutely stunning. The choices that I made in colour, they were all mine, but I think the final rendition, even the glitzy base, is something that I'm extremely proud of. And this has been by far the most complicated build that I've done in my very short modelling career. Somewhere around 150 to 200 models now, and this is probably the best one I've done. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're still here, thank you. Thank you for supporting me, and thank you for watching. Please do check out the links in the description for all the parts that I've used and the videos of the review for the Kaleido ColorWorks paint that is coming out in August. Please do check out our Facebook group. We've got 2,500 members now, and we'd love to make that grow and love to see your work there. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much once again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.